Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sylvia Major Milberg, and I will be 104 years old. I should have said 104 years young in July. My love of music originated with my Austrian-born father, who had no formal education but loved music, and listened to opera on radio every Saturday. At the age of 7, my father bought an upright piano, and I studied piano thereafter. He planted the seed that turned me on to love classical music. And when I attended UCLA, I knew what I would study. I graduated from UCLA 80 years ago in 1939 with a major in classical music. It was fortunate for me that Arnold Schoenberg was at UCLA when I was a student there, for he was a wonderful teacher marked by humility, modesty, and good nature. He taught the 3rd and 4th years in the music department. Alexander Schreiner, I don't know if you ever heard of him, he was a great renowned organist. And he taught harmony in the 2nd year at UCLA. And on Tuesdays and Fridays at lunchtime, he would perform free recitals in Roy's Hall. I clearly remember Professor Schoenberg visiting his class on occasion and making harmonic theory suggestions to Mr. Schreiner. Professor Schoenberg was a very fussy harmony teacher and was taught, for he wanted his students to be prepared for his upper division classes so that Schreiner's teachings of harmony would blend in with what Schoenberg would teach. Schoenberg taught counterpoint in my 3rd year. After a counterpoint lesson, to ensure the concept was understood, he would ask his students to write down what had just been taught, and then he would walk around the room peering over the shoulders of his students as they wrote. Can you imagine the stress? Would be. During the final examination, he peered over my shoulder, shook his head, and I knew that my A in the class was now a B. As I mentioned, my maiden name was Major, and more than once he teased me, asking if I could play in the minor tonality. One morning, as I was walking down the hallway of UCLA's Kirchhoff Hall, I passed Gershwin, George Gershwin, as he was heading to Schoenberg's office. Little did I know that he would succumb to brain cancer soon after that. Professor Schoenberg never played his own compositions in the classes I attended. However, as he left fascist Europe in the 1930s, so did Otto Klemperer. I don't know if you ever heard of him? Yeah, Otto Klemperer, who became the Los Angeles Philharmonic conductor and who introduced Stravinsky and Schoenberg to Los Angeles audiences. There was an announcement at the Los Angeles Times about an all Schoenberg program, and being curious, I attended the performance. I did not understand nor enjoy his music. During the intermission, realizing that I was now suffering from an unbearable headache from his music. I got up and left the auditorium. As I look back through the lens of time, 80 years ago, despite that live Schoenberg performance, I realized how fortunate I was to learn and study with one of the great composers of our time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you have a few questions, we can do this, all right? But we want to keep it kind of tight, so. Yeah.
Who wrote the essay that you just delivered?
Me.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
You know something, young man? I want you're to me, or you're young people.
Yes.
To me, young man, you know something? I can still think, I can still write, I can still do almost everything you do, except I can't walk. But my mind is just as active now as it was before. Yes, dear.
Just a couple. Were you, I didn't catch it. My hearing's not so good, actually. Were you born in Vienna or had your parents
I was
immigrate?
born in New York City,
Good
in
for you.
Harlem.
Okay, and did you ever move out here or did you live in New York?
We moved first time in 1923, moved out here. We
Okay.
stayed a few months, moved back to New York, then we moved back here permanently in 1929. To tell you the truth, my father was in the schmaltz business. You know what that means?
Yeah.
The schmaltz business. It's a tough business.
Yeah.
He was a designer, but also he was a cutter and he ran an office. Sometimes they were good, sometimes it was not good.
No.
It all depends. If you had to guess 6 months from now what the people were going to wear, and if you guessed wrong, you were in trouble. Right? I'm sorry, yes?
Do you still play piano?
What's he say?
Do you still play the piano?
I'm ashamed to tell you, I've got a beautiful piano at home, and I don't play it. I should. What I used to do when I was younger, and my two children played the violin, we would play a threesome. I play the piano, and they play the violin at the same time. We had a lot of music in our home. Music was second to God. That's what it was. Yes, honey?
Yes, as a student of Schoenberg, were you ever exposed to his music during the time you were as a student?
Oh.
Never,
So they didn't.
never. He never
Give
played.
recitals?
That's why I went to that
Yeah.
concert.
Well, I'm a little surprised that they.
Did you
not
enjoy his
recite-
music?
Pardon me?
Did you enjoy his music?
Yes.
We're exposing his music today for the first time. actually,
Yeah,
to us.
I'm going to tell you something. I went to a concert 2 or 3 weeks ago. This young girl as a pianist, and she played all over the world, and she came here to give a concert. And after it was over, we got to talking about composers, and Schoenberg's name came up. And when I mentioned Schoenberg, she says, "Oh, I love his music." Was it a young girl?
And-
I think he was wonderful. And I looked at her, I said, well, of course. She's young. Look what happened to Stravinsky.
Please discuss that with our teacher, how he feels about our various new composers.
I beg your pardon?
Well,
Exactly, what do you explain your
well,
question again?
our professor here is introducing us to what I was raised as being new music, and that would be Stravinsky, Schoenberg, and our teacher is trying desperately to get us to enjoy that music.
Well, I told you my little story here. I purposely went. I wanted to hear his music. And they had this very big concert.
Right,
And I went.
and
And I got the worst headache you can imagine. I had to get up and walk out during intermission. I couldn't take it. I felt very badly about it because I love that man. I can still see him now standing in my class. He was short, semi-bald, had a lovely smile, and was an excellent teacher.
One more question.
Sure.
Was he doing his 12-tone music at that point?
Yes.
Yes, he
Oh,
was.
no wonder.
Yes, he was. Maybe someday, if I live long enough, I'll enjoy his music.
One more question.
You said your A turned to a B during the exam, right? Your A,
What's he say?
Oh, that your grade, after Schoenberg was peering over your shoulder, you could tell by his eyes that your grade was
Did
going
that
to turn into a
change
B.
when you
My
walked
grade was
out?
lowered from an A to a B.
Did that change when you walked out of the concert?
No.
They didn't see you.
I really went there hoping to hear something beautiful, a Tchaikovsky or a Bach or a Mozart.
Thank you.
And one day I ended up with Schoenberg's music. I came down with a terrible headache from it.
Thank you. That was wonderful.